Watch what happened when those kids from Parkland came up to see me when I was vice president. They went and some of you covered it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
Joe Biden is not playing with a full deck. This is not somebody you can have as your president.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about what you just saw, which were a series of recent quote-unquote gaffes. We'll talk about that word in a minute from your leading 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful, Joe Biden. Now, there have been so many of those mistakes, gaffes, blunders, whatever you want to call them, that his team put out an official statement about the gaffes. And I'll place that on the screen before you and also in the description box below. They're basically saying that the gaffes are part of who Joe Biden is. He's a real person. He won't always be polished, this, that, and the third. That statement is halfway true and halfway false, and I'll explain why that is. First of all, it is true that Joe Biden has a history of saying things that he later regrets or has to apologize for, or they're taken out of context, or whatever the case may be. Just like when he said, when you go into a convenience store in Delaware, you got to have a slight Indian accent.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
You got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright.
Stuff like that. Okay, that is a gaffe because he said it and it offended people. So you got to come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean it, this, that, and the third. That's what they're referring to as far as who Joe Biden is. He'll say things that are totally offensive to some people, and then he has to come back and correct it. But that's not what is happening here in 2019. What's happening right now is that he is experiencing some diminished cognitive abilities. His mental sharpness just is starting to become very dull. It just ain't really there the way it used to be in the past. The whole thing about the Indian accent, he said that very clearly, very directly. He did not make any words up. He didn't have incorrect subject-verb agreement. Everything was very clear. He just said a thing that people were offended by. Now he's saying things that don't make any sense. Talking about, I met with the Parkland kids in 2018 while I was the vice president. Sir, you've not been the vice president since the end of January 2017 when Donald Trump got inaugurated, okay? He did not have you as a vice president for a little while until Pence got off vacation or whatever the case. You were gone when Barack Obama was gone. So you've not been the vice president since early 2017. So it was impossible for you to be the vice president in 2018 when Parkland happened. He did meet with some Parkland kids in 2018, but he wasn't the vice president. Now, some would say, oh, it was an honest mistake. He didn't really, but nah, he said that same exact sentence, the same exact grouping of words twice, once earlier in the day and then again later in the day. So obviously the elevator is not going to the top floor. Like Donald Trump said, he's not playing with a full deck, and it's pretty clear. Also talking about poor kids can do just as well as white kids. All right. I think he probably really thinks that in his mind, that poor is the equivalent to black or non-white. And he said it at the wrong time. So that could be in the gaffe category. But at the same time, he could not control himself to prevent himself from saying it. You see what I'm saying? He should have just said, underprivileged kids can do just as well as people that are privileged. That would have been the correct wording. But he didn't say it like that. Could have been a gaffe as far as just a mistake and something he regrets, or something he could not stop himself from saying because the mental ability is just not there. And aside from some of the statements that he has made that are kind of false or strange or just not really making a whole lot of sense, he also has had very bad debate performances. He'll be asked a question, he'll answer the question, and then he'll just stop himself right at the end of his allotted time, which is abnormal because if you are in a debate and let's say you have 45 seconds, 60 seconds, you're going to give your response in the appropriate amount of time in your mind. If they're telling you, okay, wrap it up, you're going to complete your thought and then wrap it up. You won't just abruptly stop, and you won't stop yourself. That's not really how that goes. But since he's not really engaged in my opinion, mentally, because he's 77 years old. Father Time is undefeated. He's not as sharp as he used to be. He'll stop himself right there to prevent himself from saying anything that he doesn't want to say. And he's tired already. How are you going to have this guy, Democrat, speaking to you, how are you going to have this guy be the face of your party? His team is coming out and trying to defend him, putting out statements. You got Simone Sanders out there trying to cape for him on TV, this, that, and the third. But even the DNC is like, look, sir, you cannot be a gaffe machine out there. That's going to be bad on the Democratic Party. If the objective is to get back into the White House for the Democrats, trying to ride on the broken back of Joe Biden ain't going to get her done. And that's aside from the whole creepy Joe situation, touching on women and little girls, kissing them inappropriately on top of their head, you know, smelling girls' hair. That's aside from all of that. I mean, that's been known for a while. That's not anything new. But on top of the creepiness, on top of the insensitive comments he has made in the past and continues to make today, you also have the diminished mental ability. It's pretty clear what's going on. I don't think he really wants to run. Quite honestly, I think he's being forced out there because who else does the Democratic Party have? They don't have anybody. I mean, all their eggs were pushed into the Barack Obama basket, and Joe Biden is a relic from the Obama administration. You know, the highest ranking person in the cabinet, the vice president. So that's why he has the support that he has. There's nobody really else that could challenge him, in my opinion, that will do better than him as it relates to voting. There are some that do better than him on the campaign trail, for sure. Some of the lesser known people, you know, I forget their names. They're so unknown, but I've seen them on a debate stage and they would do well, but Joe Biden cannot do well. But the DNC is kind of in a conundrum. They need another person to go out there and be the face of the campaign because Joe Biden can't do it. At the same time, they realize that he is their best chance of trying to actually defeat Trump. He's the best vehicle through which they can raise money. So they're just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I personally like it. I have no sympathy at all for Creepy Joe or the Democratic Party. They've made their bed. Now they got to lie in it. Their whole thing has been about identity politics and racism and sexism, all those other obics and this. Now they got to deal with it. Now they got to face it. And they still have to be able to raise money and win an election. How are they going to square their new face as it relates to their party policy with the old face, which is a 77-year-old Joe Biden who has one foot in the proverbial grave? I don't know, but I digress. That is pretty much all I got. So what say you? Do you think that Joe Biden's team is trying to defend Joe Biden in a futile effort? I mean, is it only a matter of time before he pretty much just drops out or drops below other people like Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, etc.? Is he going to be the nominee for the 2020 Democratic presidential campaign? Who's going to be their running mate? Will it be a so-called person of color that can do just as well as a white kid? Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.